All right, welcome to Turnaround Tuesday, June 30th. We just had the June acreage report and the quarterly grain stocks report. And we actually, for a brief moment in time, had a Turnaround Tuesday where we can, lay claim to the name here. So we'll see if grains can hold on here into the close. We'll dive into some markets, got some things to talk about with you. Thanks for joining us today. And let's go to the markets, quote you up, and then we will bring in my guest, Connor B. Looking at your July corn, 409 up 7 cents right now. Dees corn up 3.5 cents at 433.5. July beans up a penny and 3/4 at 11.10. Nove beans up 2 3/4 at 11.41 3/4. KC wheat, July KC wheat up 11.5. Sep KC wheat up 12.5 at 6.27. Chicago wheat is up 9 cents at 5.88 on the Sep contract. Over in your cattle markets, we got feeder cattle, August feeders down 320 at 364. Big trading range in your feeder cattle contracts. You get live cattle mixed on the board with June coming into expiration, but on your deferred months, August, we're down $1.65 on August feeders. The Dow is up 168 points, the S&P up 57.5, and the NASDAQ is on a scorcher up 500 points. All right, with that, let's bring in the man, Connor B himself. Connor, how are you today?
I'm not bad. I'm staying cool. Good day to be in the AC.
Staying cool. That's hard to do right now. Boy, it's been swampy out here in Kansas. We've had some moisture finally, and then the summer heat comes, and I've had to change my underwear more than I usually do each week. But that's TMI, maybe, possibly. Anyway, all right, so we had the June acreage report and the grain stocks report. We'll flash up some of these quotes here, kind of a breakdown of the report. Connor B, what are your thoughts here? What sticks out to you, I guess, as we jump into this?
Well, I would say the overall theme, right? If you're like me, you were hoping for something, a drastic change, right? Something maybe corn acres are going to be much lower, something that the trade wasn't expecting. We did not get that. They compared to where estimates were in March to where they came out on this report, very close on both corn and soybeans, right? The only the surprise or maybe the difference is going to be in the wheat market. When we're looking at wheat acres were a little bit lower. And then when I look at quarterly grain stocks, we were a little bit below estimates on corn as well. And so, I'm not going to call this an overly bearish report. I'm not going to call it an overly bullish report. I'm going to summarize it and say, in general, estimates were pretty close, right? A few outliers, specifically in the wheat market. We're kind of seeing that right now in the price action, but especially in acres, right? We were pretty close to where the estimates were.
Right. Yep. I think the thing that sticks out to me the most here, Connor B, is that winter wheat. You look at the harvested winter wheat acres and the abandonment level there, which, we've had a disastrous wheat crop out here, and it's much smaller than a year ago and tough growing conditions. So it shouldn't surprise us too much, but it's maybe the bigger leader in the market right now as you look at KC wheat up 11 cents. So and holding those gains, but that's about 32% abandonment on your winter wheat crop. Up there. So that's a big surprise to me.
Yeah. As always, right? There's a lot of times I think you could give me the numbers ahead of time and I'd still lose money, because it's not always about just knowing the numbers, but then it's how the trade's going to react. And so right now we are at a turnaround. Corn's up, beans up, wheat's up. But right after a report, we had beans up as much as 15, 16 cents on what I would call a bearish bean report, right? Acres generally held the same, and we saw stocks up a little bit. So it's always interesting. We've given a lot of that back. Right now we got beans up a couple cents, 3 cents. But it's always interesting the price action that comes with reports like this.
For sure. Yep. You never know how it's going to react, like you said, and you can have the numbers ahead of the report and still be wrong on the market's reaction. Yeah. So what now, Connor B? Here's what I think. What's now? You watching the same thing? Big heat wave coming in. You ready for summer?
Summer is here, whether I want it to be or not. Holy crap, it is hot, and it's going to stay out for the next week.
Yeah. 4th of July ahead of us. Big important couple weeks for weather coming ahead of us. We'll see Trade will be watching updated weather models, I think, right? See what unfolds if we get more heat to come as we look out for into middle of July. You know, what we realize here over the next coming weeks with the heat wave, but what is the middle of July? How prolonged is this stretch of heat? That may dictate where these markets want to go. If we get some beneficial rains coming in, warm weather is a good thing too, though, Connor, right? Warm weather is a good thing.
To get this crop caught up, it's that we're in my neck of the woods. We can handle some 90-degree temperatures. It's not a bad thing. When I look at markets, just tying it back into this report, while the report wasn't overly bullish, right? Maybe slightly bullish on corn, neutral on soybeans, bullish on wheat. Maybe the hope is yesterday, Brady, we called this turnaround Tuesday. Yesterday, July corn had a 3 in front of it. Okay. Right now it's at 408. And so it's not much of a bounce. It's something, maybe we're at a point where we've got the numbers, and maybe this is the optimism that we could see something where we've got a floor on and the market can start digesting the potential weather. We can talk a lot about late planning, about the weather in May, about the weather in June. It's July precipitation and July temperatures that make or break this crop. And so, that's again, that might be me being an optimist. We'll see where things go. But I think that's where maybe the trade will move on to looking at these weather charts and start looking at these precipitation.
Right. Yeah. You got a good crop right now, a good start, but there's no kernels on hardly any corn plants in Iowa, Illinois, in any of the Midwest right now. We've got a lot ahead of us for that corn crop, and how we pollinate the moisture. Those will dictate ultimately what the yields are. And regardless of how you start, it's kind of how you finish. So.
Right. And speaking of how you finish, is you think on June 30th, okay, we've got the crop is planted and we've got the acres. That is not the case. Last year, from the June 30th report to the final year report, how many corn acres did the USDA find from here till January? Was it 3.5 million?
Right. Yeah.
So the acre story, it's not over. We saw it change. We kept adding to it when we thought we couldn't find any more corn acres. They just kept finding them. Right. Maybe that's the case this year. Maybe it's the opposite. But the story isn't over, even though we're past the June 30th report.
Right. Yep. Bottom line, we growers like to plant corn. They still like to plant beans, I guess. They didn't really like to plant wheat, and we definitely didn't harvest as much wheat either. So, yeah. But that corn stocks number, though, incredible. Adjustment there, miss on that trade estimate. That's got to be pretty supportive here for. Hey, we've got solid demand. Maybe it's better than expected. And we continue to grind through this big supply in an unprecedented way. So demand is a big winner as you crunch and dig into some of those numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the big surprise to me is going to be where you were talking about with the wheat acres, the abandonment of wheat, and then looking at that corn stocks number.
Yeah. All right, I got one more graphic here I want to show up. This one was the fun one. Okay. El Nino, Super El Nino, Godzilla El Nino. We've talked about last week.
We've heard it all.
We have heard it all. So this, how big of a deal is the change in weather pattern and to just the whole global supply balance going forward? You look at some of these pockets here on this map. Where is it dry? Where is it wet? One that sticks out to me is Australia, and a wheat crop down there that's pretty important to the globe. What are the implications for El Nino weather to Australian wheat production going forward? You need a good mentor of mine, Connor, once told me, and I always go back to it, just when you have one production domino fall, that's a good thing, but you need multiple production dominoes to fall to really get a market going. And if we see this abandonment in U.S. wheat acreage, harvest, lower yields, lower production, where's that next domino to fall that gets this rally going to push us to another paradigm? Maybe that's too bullish, but you got some warm weather in the EU right now, and we're going to a super El Nino pattern. Is that detrimental to the Australian crop? Do you get a couple more dominoes to fall that really excite the market and cause funds to come in and cover shorts and decide they want to get long and push prices to a new paradigm? That's right. What's on my radar, what I'm thinking about right now, Connor.
And just to echo that is when we look at fund positioning, we've seen a big sell off. The funds have sold corn like crazy. We're already in a short position to where, maybe if we go back to history in seasonals, we're very quickly, we're in the period and getting farther away that, the seasonal highs are going to be past us, and maybe they already are. We need a lot of dominoes to fall to go to rally 60 cents back to above $5 corn. But we could potentially be in a position where funds could support that, right? It's not like we're getting some bullish news and we've got a fund position that's very, very long. And so that's something that could support it. But again, it's going to come down to weather. The El Nino pattern for us, it shows wet. I would say that's held for a good majority of the Corn Belt so far. And, in the extended forecast I've seen, precipitation looks like it's got pretty good coverage. I know it can change very quickly, but that's where we're at right now.
Yep. Okay. Going forward, a lot about weather. I got two graphics for you. You talked about seasonals. Let's pull them in right now and look at them. This is from Commodity Views bar charts platform, December corn seasonal. Looking at the white line is December corn futures from the beginning of the year. The green line is the 5-year average. The blue line is the 20-year average, and that red line is unchanged versus the beginning of the year. So you can really see that tendency to kind of rally that you talk about early in April, May timeframe. Bit of an earlier sell-off this year versus that seasonal average, but looking at the rest of the year, I don't know what the future holds here, and I don't want to predict, but are the lows in? We hope, right?
We should. It'd be really nice if it is. But again, history says we don't put lows in June very often, Brady. But again, this is an early. Sure. You can see this seasonal. What's it telling us is that the seasonal pattern, it dang near played out just a little bit earlier than what we've seen in the 5. What do you say that was the 5 and 10 year average, 5 and 20 year average?
Yep, the 5-year, the green, the blue is the 20. Yep. And to your point about funds, with the funds, what are they, 50, 60, 70,000 short right now? Their ability to go to 200, 300,000. So they can certainly drive this market much lower than we're at today. So don't get overly bullish here, but looking at that chart, I don't know. I hope all the selling is done. That would be nice. That's what farmers want to hear and see.
Yeah.
That sells newsletters for sure. Look, here's the KC wheat seasonal with harvest upon us and wrapping up decisions on should I store the wheat, should I sell the wheat. Again, the white line is year to date. We saw a nice rally in December KC wheat futures early in July, all the contracts, but I'm looking at these because it looks forward. The 5-year is the green line. The blue is the 20-year. I pulled 2 contract years in here that I think are worth looking at. One is 21, that's the orange line, and the other is the yellow line is 2020, and just highlighting that some years things are different than the seasonal, and you can buck the trend. And if we get those other dominoes to fall, could China come in and buy some U.S. wheat because Australia production falls apart? And would a high tide lift all boats? You need a market like wheat to take off to support your other markets too. So,
and to tell you what it would do it is if we start seeing China sniff around in wheat or in the corn market, right? And it's not, a couple of years ago, I think China buying U.S. corn, it didn't feel very likely. The framework is there, right? They agreed to buy 17 billion in ag goods. Don't quote me on that number. And so, the framework's there to follow through with what you're talking about, right? China comes in and buys in late summer. That's what we saw when we kicked off the rally in 2020. What happened is we had a shift in acreage. Then we had the derecho that took out a good part of production. But then also we had demand come back out of COVID. We saw China buying U.S. corn. We saw China buying big amounts of soybeans, and it really kicked off the rally. And so I'm not making any promises, Brady, that we're in that situation, right? We need a lot of dominoes to fall to get there, but we could see a pattern like that. It is absolutely in the realm of possibility.
Yep, sentiment can swing fast, and don't paint this market in too small of a box. That recency bias of what has happened the last 6 months will continue to happen going forward. not necessarily the case. This tide can turn fast, and when it's the most bearish in ag, sometimes that's the best time to be a bull. And when it's the most bullish in ag, sometimes that's the time you need to go out there and lay off some risk and be a little bit more bearish. So
absolutely. And I think that also, not in soybeans, but in the corn market, I think it's very much important to know, what is your crop insurance, the crop insurance you took out, whatever policy you did, what is it doing for you right now at these levels? I know we don't know where the yield's at. Maybe it's a little bit above, but it's pretty easy to do some math, especially looking at ECO or SCO, where it is a county policy. Okay, if my county has a record yield, or what's at the top of the 5-year average, what's the price got to be where it starts to kick in at? So me in Christian County, it's right around 418, 420, something like that. And so in terms of risk to your bottom line, 370 corn, 380 corn, right? Just the worst of the worst in terms of price, crop insurance is going to pick up for us. So I think it's important to know, where is that floor at, and making sure, as much as anything, is psychology level for you here in the next couple months.
I like it. Yeah, those are the things to be thinking about. It makes it kind of quiet sometimes as a broker when you have a market like this, but it doesn't mean there's not things to do either. I mean, if you have some great sales in place, protect those sales, manage the positions that you have on, position for that game-changing event that comes in and wakes things up. So good stuff, Connor B. Good stuff.
Absolutely.
What else is on your mind here as we wrap up and wind down to Turnaround Tuesday here? You got anything to leave guys with here as we get ready to walk out the door?
Yeah, I mean, should we talk a little cattle? That's your realm, but just looking at the price action and feeders, do we start getting a little bit nervous here, Brady?
It's a good question. I, being in the cattle business myself, I just want to be a bull. I love the great market that we've seen. And you look back at the last 3 years, and anybody who has stepped in front of this market has just gotten flat ran over. It's been a resilient market. You got to wonder the confidence of the consumer. And, we've had a rally in crude oil. Gas prices at the pump, they're starting to come back, but they haven't backed off completely. When do we get into that squeeze? Is it school time? Is it September, October? What does the future look like ahead with the consumer and beef demand? And it's been resilient, so I don't want to outguess that the consumer is going to stop buying beef. They may just moderate how much they buy. The USDA, each WASDE report, they update the per capita consumption and demand and some of those production. It's buried in the bottom of the report, but it's something I always like to go and look at. But to answer your question, Connor B., I want to be a bull. I want to go take out those contract highs, but you can't ignore where we're at and the levels we're at. And if you're in the cow-calf business, great areas. I got a feeder cattle index here. This is long-term. This looks back to like 2000 monthly feeder cattle index. We're 380, 379, 380 on the index, just right off the record, recent record high on the feeder cattle index. The bull rally has been resilient. It's lasted longer than anybody thought. I wouldn't want to say it can't continue to go higher, but you got to respect where we're at versus where we've been.
Absolutely.
Here's another one, seasonals, looking at October feeder cattle from the first of the year to the contract coming off the books, where we're at. The red line is unchanged. You can look and see 25, we continue to rally. The red dash line is unchanged. The red solid line is the 25 October feeder cattle futures contract. And we just continue to grind higher and rally higher into the close. We had that October sell-off. You can see that on that chart where we sold off significantly in October. That Argentina beef import tweet sent this market into a tizzy. But heck, it was higher than where we were in June or July at the end of the day. Yeah, I don't know what you take away from this chart. I think the one that really sticks out to me is just that one, where we're at, where we've been, and huge cattle market. It's great to be in the cow-calf business. The time is great to be there, but I don't know. I don't want to stand in front of it, Connor B, either. I want to be a bull.
I like it. So, well, now I think we've got Friday markets are closed, 4th of July.
Okay.
I don't know about you, but I don't see a whole lot of price action the rest of the week, right? I guess we're going to trade a little bit of weather, but we've got the acres numbers. I could see it being a little bit slow for the next couple of days, and then we're going to get back 3-day weekend. We're going to see what weather looks like, what this heat is doing to crop conditions, and I think that's what you can predict, right? And then we have another USDA report pretty quick, maybe 2 weeks away. I'm actually not sure on that one, but I think we're back to trading weather now that we've got the acres numbers behind us and digested.
Yep. Could be an interesting Sunday, Monday open after the holiday as you get out. And a lot of people get out and take trips across the country. Traders take trips. They go back home to the farm and they live in the city and they go look at the corn crop on their way out to the countryside this time of year. And then you've got new weather models that are going to be popping out, and we'll be in the heart of July. So a lot happening right now over these next course of the next weeks. I wouldn't outguess any Sunday, Monday open and how quick a market could move in a hurry. And it may be an opportunity to go do something if you've fallen behind or look like you're behind, and keep in mind where your ECO, SCO coverage is and manage that gap, I guess. Maybe the takeaway here.
So. Yep, I think so.
All right. Thanks for joining me, Connor B. Connor B, agmarket.net. Hit him up. Good guy, good dude. Love him. Brady Huck, EmpowerAg Trading. If you want info, I'll plug my little site here real quick. Make sure you go to my site, EmpowerAgTrading.com. Fill out some contact info. You can get some content from us, text messages, emails, videos like this, even the weekend wrap video series that I pump out every Friday. Look forward to getting that to you. Thanks for joining us today. And with that, I'm going to click the button and get out of here. Happy 4th of July to all of you.
Have a good one.